Hello, and welcome to The Right Side. The Right Side is a news talk show produced by the Taunton Republican City Committee. We strive to present local, state, and national issues that impact our community, and we welcome all points of view to foster greater understanding and awareness. We want to make it clear that the views and opinions expressed on The Right Side do not reflect the view of Taunton Cable Media Access. And now, with great pleasure, we welcome you to The Right Side for a discussion of the issues of the day.
There we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Right Side, a show produced by the Taunton Republican City Committee. My name is David Steinoff, and I'll be your host once again. Tonight, full disclosure, we have for a special guest Mr. Dennis Proulx of the Taunton Area Vietnam Veterans Association. Tonight's show is not a conservative talk show. It's nonpartisan. We've invited Mr. Proulx, and he has been kind enough to come on our show and educate us a little bit about what the Vietnam veterans are having to deal with and some of the things we might be able to do to help out. So if you would, sir, introduce yourself. Obviously you're a veteran of Vietnam, and I want to start by thanking you and all of the other personnel who have served in the wars throughout our history.
Thank you very much for saying that. I was a Vietnam veteran. I got drafted in 1969, spent 14 months in Vietnam, and can I talk about the group a little bit, the history of the group?
That's exactly what we're here for.
Okay. You know, when we got back, most of us got back from Vietnam, we weren't treated very well. You know, everybody was against the war, and they took it out on the soldier. And because of it, a lot of Vietnam veterans got into the closet and stayed there. They took off their medals, their ribbons, threw it in a drawer, didn't even admit that they were Vietnam veterans to anybody.
Just so I can clear up people on Vietnam, the era itself, spanned from 64, as I take it, to 75?
Really, that's when it was kind of escalated. Actually, there were soldiers over there before that as advisors, and as early as 1959.
So this was a war that lasted almost 15 years total.
Quite a while, stretched out, and I have my own feelings of why it was so long. I think that if things had been handled a lot differently, if it wasn't ended up a political war, I think things would have been ended a lot sooner than that, and I may never had to go. I ended up going in 1960, actually beginning in 1970. I got drafted in 69.
I remember growing up. I was born in 61, so I caught the newsreels. But I remember people talking about the draft as if it was just another common occurrence. It was the draft, and every day we saw the newsreels on TV talking about who had died, how many casualties. It was ongoing. It's almost as if you became desensitized.
I think that was the reason why a lot of people turned against the war. This is the first time in history that the war was brought to the public.
In your living room.
Exactly. And, you know, everybody in the previous wars always got the good news, and they never got any bad news. Whenever I speak in front of a group of people, I tell, you know, especially children, I says, there's good guys and bad guys. They, you know, on TV they have the white hats, the good guys have the white hats, the bad guys black hat. And good guys never get killed, just the bad guys. It doesn't work that way in a war. Right. Bullets don't discriminate for anybody, black, yellow, red, a family, a wife, the smartest guy in the world, most handsome guy in the world, doesn't matter. The bullet's coming at you, it's going to get you. And because it was on TV, people kind of turned against it. Oh, we don't want our guys hurt. Well, that's what happens during war. But like I was mentioning, we didn't get treated very well when we got home, so most of us just didn't talk about it. But finally, in the late 70s, myself and 4 other Vietnam vets and a Korean vet got together and formed a group, Taunton Area Vietnam Veterans Association. The reason we did that was because we were veterans.
Yes, sir.
We served our country. We did just as good a job as anybody else in any other war. I saw a lot of heroes out there, a lot of brave people, and why should they be picked on because they served their country? It wasn't fair, so we started our group.
In all sincerity, I have an uncle who served in the Vietnam War. I have a lot of friends who served in the Vietnam War, who were older than me, obviously. They were my brother's age. And the fact that you even have to almost sound as if you're defending it and conditioning it is almost inexcusable. You shouldn't have to. That was one horrible war, and the veterans who came back, as you said, weren't treated very well for whatever reason, but should never feel that they did anything but serve their country in the most honorable way.
That's right. You know, when most of us were going through high school, I tell a lot of people this, you had a choice. Either join and go in a branch of service that you want and get an occupation that you want to do, go to college, or get drafted. So, dummy me, I said, well, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a chance. You know, if I don't watch about Vietnam on TV, I don't talk about it, maybe it'll avoid me, the draft will avoid me. Well, it didn't avoid me. I started work at Reed and Barton in 1967, and in 1969 I had just gotten a promotion, just bought a brand new Mustang, 69 fastback Mustang, and sure enough, I got a letter, I got drafted. So I went in September of 69, and by the end of January of 70, I was on my way over to Vietnam. I just turned 20.
You just turned 20.
Yeah.
As I recall, some 68%, when I was going through some of the stats, 68% of the 61% of the men killed were 21 or younger. That's horrible. I mean, these are boys who had just graduated from high school and were suddenly found in a horrible jungle war.
Exactly.
I know just from talking to my patients, a lot of the kids today don't have any clue. I asked
They don't even know where Vietnam is, right?
They don't know where it is. They don't know when it occurred. How many people died? How many soldiers died as a result? American soldiers died as a result.
Close to 59,000.
And that number's still growing.
Yes, it is, because I think every year they add a few names to it if the person had died because of wounds from the Vietnam War. So they etch new names on it every year.
And that is on the wall in Washington.
In D.C., right.
Now, people don't understand, just so they can understand it clearly, that there are still people dying from the effects. We could talk about Agent Orange, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. These are real conditions that soldiers have dealt with since the Vietnam era. I think it took the Vietnam era to wake people up.
Right. And the Agent Orange, you know, there's so many illnesses related to it. Heart disease now, diabetes. I got type 2 diabetes. There's no history in my family of diabetes. All of a sudden, about 2 years ago, my doctor says, you're borderline type 2 diabetes. Wow. Then other people with all kinds of cancer and everything. Agent Orange, or dioxin, which they use in Vietnam to defoliate. They figured if they could defoliate the forests and the jungles and everything, we'd be able to see the enemy. Well, if it can kill vegetation, it can kill people too.
Absolutely.
But it gets into your system, and a lot of guys are getting sick in their middle 60s, early to middle 60s. It seems like it's like a time bomb, and it comes out then. So it's very scary, very scary.
I mean, there are people right now that are dealing with medical conditions that the docs are just beginning to associate, even to this day, if I'm correct, just beginning to associate with what they may have dealt with during the war. It's not as easy as what they found that they had a certain type of cancer and they're treating it. Now they're beginning to relate it back. So some of these soldiers are, most of the veterans who are dealing with these ailments, getting the proper treatment or getting some of the relief?
I think, and my insurance goes through the VA, and I've been very pleased with the VA in the last few years with the hospitals and doctors and everything. Years and years ago, I always thought that the VA was for experimentation. It scared me, but I'm very pleased. I think they've come a long ways. But the problem, there's a lot of veterans out there that have these illnesses but haven't gone for help, whether it be physical or post-traumatic stress.
They don't want to admit it to themselves, so they haven't quite found the right person to help them understand it.
Right, and in some cases they say, "Oh, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. There's always somebody else worse than me," you know.
Right. Again, bravery beyond the call of duty.
Right, but I always felt that a lot of these guys, when they came home and needed help, and because of the all the people against them, they didn't want to admit they were Vietnam veterans. If they had gotten help then, I think they'd be a lot better off. They would get everything out of their system. I tell a lot of people, you know, you can take the soldier out of war, but you can't take the war out of a soldier. It's there.
Just to clarify, for people who may not be that familiar with it, because as I said, I talked to several young people in my office just to find out what they did and didn't know. As I understand, the Vietnam War basically ground down to a halt. They used the 17th parallel, much the way they did the 38th parallel in Korea, to kind of set up a line of demarcation. And our government then formulated this idea that we could fight a contained war in South Vietnam without ever attacking the bases of the enemy in North Vietnam, or not as routinely, or cutting off the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and thereby leaving our soldiers to fight an almost untenable war.
I'll give you a little insight on that. I was in artillery, and what we used to do is they used to drop this bomb they call a daisy cutter. It's a 10,000-pound bomb, and we clear away the jungle. Then they drop us in with our artillery and the infantry would go all around the area for a couple of weeks and clear out the area, then we'd move somewhere else. But all we were doing is hopscotching. As soon as we moved out of an area, the enemy would pull right back in. So if we had started from the bottom and work our way up and contained everything that we won, it might have been a different war too. They knew exactly what we were doing. They just waited for us to move on, and then they go right back in where we were.
I think that's one of the most grievous tragedies of this war, is that the poor treatment the veterans received when they first came home was the product of just people misunderstanding it. As you said, not wanting it in their living room every day, but also just misunderstanding the kind of war you were asked to fight. And what were we talking about before? I don't think many of us realize this. Some 2.5 million personnel, United States soldiers, served in Vietnam, within the Vietnam border, South Vietnam, during that war. Some 3.5. So that's a large number. At that time, the population in the United States would have been closer to 200 to 250. So many as 1 in every 100 people in the country, including young and old, would have served in that war. That's an enormous number.
It is. And we were rotating all the time. Now, in Afghanistan and Iraq, all units went over as a whole unit, then came back as a whole unit. In Vietnam, people changed all the time. You did your tour, you went home, and somebody else replaced you. Your unit stayed there. So you're always getting inexperienced people and losing experienced people all the time. And one day you're in the war, and next day you're back home in the United States and civilization. It's strange, very, very strange.
And the public wasn't doing well. Am I right? The news media wasn't doing well with educating, and the public in general tried to hide this entire affair as if it was a conflict, a small conflict, and yet the numbers say just the opposite.
Yeah, there was quite a few people over there, quite a few different units. It's just a very strange war. It's something that we never had fought before. We were fighting an enemy that we couldn't even see, but they were there.
Yeah.
They were all around you, and they seemed to know what you're going to do before you even knew what you were going to do. By the time you finished your tour in Vietnam, you knew what you were doing. Then you're on your way home. It was weird, we worked in my unit. We worked with the Special Forces, and we shot for them when they were in firefights and everything. But they knew how to fight the Viet Cong the way the Viet Cong fought, and they were doing a very good job at it. And believe it or not, the Army, the regular Army, didn't like the Green Beret because they were fighting unconventionally. But they were doing their job. They were doing a great job, and they were really, really tough people.
I think people watch war movies and they think everybody runs around in tanks. It was not that kind of a war.
There was only one major tank battle in Vietnam.
Right.
And it was one of our batteries, B battery up in Ben Het. It was like 6 months before I got there. And they did a documentary on TV about it too. And apparently they kept on hearing tanks, but they couldn't be in tanks. There's no tanks. Well, sure enough, they got attacked by like 6 or 7 tanks, and they drove them off. They blew them up and everything, but it was a battle.
Well, with that, we're going to switch over to Pete on the Street. He has a short segment. Pete's done a fantastic job for us, trying to talk to people and bring a little light onto our show. The Taunton Republican City Committee has put together, the right side. And in just a few seconds, am I right, gentlemen? You'll give me the sign?
15.
about 15 seconds. And what we're doing right now, do you have a website, sir?
Yes, Taunton Area VietnamVets.com.
We're going to announce that again, just in case they didn't hear it. Thanks.
Hey, let's get away from politics for a little while. Do you know there have been Miss Tauntons crowned here in the city since starting in 1955? And this year we've got a lovely young woman named Ashley Shavs, who is the reigning Miss Taunton. Let's go on social media and see what she's up to. She saw the devastation in the Oklahoma tornadoes, and she decided to send teddies from Taunton. She's created a Facebook event. She's setting up collecting areas over at the Taunton High School parking lot. Let's go on over and see what she's up to today. So Ashley, hey, welcome to the Right Side TV.
Thank you. Welcome to Teddy's for Taunton.
All right, let's go see what you're doing.
Sure.
All right, thank you. All right, here we are with Ashley Shavs, our reigning Miss Taunton. It's Miss Taunton, not Ms. Taunton.
Miss Taunton.
Miss Taunton. And what prompted you to do this, Ashley?
Well, when I heard everything that had happened with the tornadoes in Oklahoma, I wanted to do something to help. And I thought, what is one small thing that could bring comfort to all of these children who have lost so much in their lives? And I figured a teddy bear or a stuffed animal is just a small gesture that could mean so much to these kids.
Yeah, just a little something to love.
Exactly.
And how many have you collected so far?
Well, this is about, I would say about 100, and these all came from Taunton High and some other friends. The collection actually starts in about 5 minutes, so I'm curious to see how many more people will come within the next 2 hours.
So the Right Side TV is an early bird
You're
today.
an early bird.
And now I understand you do quite a bit to support the troops. It's another effort you're into.
Yes.
You want to give a shout out to the troops?
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to everyone that serves in all of our different armed forces, from the Reserves, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. Hooah out there, guys.
All right. Now, what's your name? Mia. And are you a Girl Scout? I heard you're a Girl Scout. Oh, this is a great project for Girl Scouts. Thank you very much.
All right, you ready? You can bring them. Oh. All right, now come on. I'll show you where all the bears are going.
All right.
Yes. And you stopped at my event? This is awesome. Oh my gosh, absolutely you can.
So Ashley, how are these getting shipped to Oklahoma?
Local businesses, local state reps, some senators, and the Taunton firefighters have offered to help pay for the shipping.
Oh, speaking of local state reps, who do we have here?
We have Miss Keiko Oral.
How are you?
Great.
All right.
Great.
Thank you so much for participating in this.
Oh, this is a great idea. Oh, I'm
Thank
so
you
happy.
so much. Oh my goodness.
So happy.
There you go. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest tonight, Mr. Dennis Proulx of the TAVVA, Taunton Area Vietnam Veterans Association. And I always want